Hey everyone, welcome back for another brand new video about that show where choosing the wrong color can mean certain death, House of the Dragon. Warning, beyond this point there are spoilers for people who are not up to date in the House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones TV shows along with the book series they were adapted from. In this video we're going to give you a very special binge brightened breakdown of every single dark scene so far in the House of the Dragon's freshman season, and some of the scenes really are dark as shit. If you have a really nice TV or you don't mind changing your settings every time you watch a show, then don't bother with this video. But if you're like a lot of regular people out there and you are sitting at home squinting, turning off every light in the house trying to see what's going on, you're not alone, and we got you. We're going to break down each one of these dimly lit scenes episode by episode to make sure we didn't miss anything important leading up to the finale, and we're going to start all the way back at the beginning. So now let's take a look at the pilot episode.
Binge. Breaking.
First off, not many of these scenes are brightly lit. A lot of them are more dim, it's just the style. We're going to be focusing on the scenes where some or all of the shots are considerably dark, to make sure we didn't miss any important details in the shadows. The premiere episode starts off decently lit, and we don't really have many issues with brightness until we get to a private moment with King Viz and his first love, Emma. We did our Lord of Light magic here and didn't find anything else that had story value, but it's always nice to be able to clearly see the characters, costumes, and location. The next scene also is not the brightest bulb in the pack, as Daemon and his gold cloaks are doing their dirty work in the dark. It's not the easiest to make out what the hell is happening aside from a whole bunch of police brutality. In all of our slow motion rewatching of this scene, the only thing Brightening did was help us see the beatings and maimings better. No new story info here. This love scene between Daemon and Mysaria, which we kind of forgot about, was also super dark. Making it brighter told us nothing, unfortunately, except that Mysaria had Daemon wrapped around her little finger. Episode 2 again only had a few minutes that were dimly lit. This moment between Alicent and her daddy Dearest shows us the decor better, but the additional light doesn't add anything meaningful to what goes down in their dysfunctional relationship. A little bit later, Daemon walks down a dark tunnel past some of the men he used to command, although this is just a quick transition that never told us anything anyway. The final scene in episode 2 that needed to lighten up was a pretty heavy convo between the king and Rhaenyra's secret baby granddaddy, Lionel Strong. RIP to a couple of legends, but once again we're not seeing anything new here. Episode 3 was honestly really well lit, even the night scenes. We've included some footage of the opening pillage with the crab feeder. These scenes are meant to be dark, and brightening them up doesn't really give us anything new. The same with young Rhaenyra and the boar attack. We can already see everything that happens here. Hats off to whoever handled the lighting for this episode, because it's much better than some later examples that we'll complain about soon. Episode 4 had a few scenes that needed extra light, the first one being this scene of Rhaenyra getting ready to slum it in King's Landing. Although we can't translate that Valyrian writing, it is nice to be able to clearly see where X marked the spot on Rhaenyra's grooming map from Daemon. A good chunk of this episode is dark, although we can mostly still make out everything that's going on, for the most part.
Hey! I saw it again and it's all darkness!
During Rhaenyra and Daemon's walk through Flea Bottom, it is nice to be able to see all the shady and colorful characters in the crowd, but again, nothing new as far as the story. After the unlikely couple leave the play making fun of Rhaenyra's entire life, there are some more dark moments, but we don't find any sinister killers lurking in the shadows, just more depraved people. The underground orgy scenes are also not lit too well, but you're gonna have to take our word on that as we can't be showing that stuff here. The whole vibe with a grooming uncle is creepy as fuck anyway. Episode 5 was looking pretty bright for the most part, except for the entire wedding. Most of it wasn't dark enough to stop us from seeing everything, we just wanted to see it in good light. The final wedding scene intercut with Kristen's failed suicide attempt were a bit too dark though. Brightening up this scene does give us a better sense of where Alicent walks in, but not any kind of real news. Episode 6 was not too problematic, although the dragon training scenes could have been a lot easier to make out the action and the dragons. We did like being able to see the wide shots of the room and understand the geography of the space better, and feel this should have been a lot brighter, especially when the kids were interacting. Gotta love Aemon getting memed on. It's like witnessing the birth of a Napoleon complex. The scenes with Daemon, Laena, and their kids weren't the brightest, but we could always see pretty much everything in the scene, at least until Laena wanted to commit suicide by dragon. Brightening this up definitely helps us see every little bit of the Valyrian lady's brave last moments. This ominous scene where Larys goes and frees a bunch of psychopaths after he takes away their ability to speak was also very dark. We can see that there are a lot of people in this cell here. How big is Larys' shadow team? Conference calls must be pretty quiet for these guys. The Strong's final scene starts off very dark, but unfortunately for the Strong men, it quickly gets lit up. RIP the real Strongs. The final scene in episode 6 that needed some light love was this one with Viserys vibing with his rat buddy and doing the memberberry thing about his late first wife. If only the boy would have lived.
He toasted Prince Balon,
The king's son.
styling him the heir for a day.
Episode 7 is by far the most problematic in the series in terms of lighting. We watched all the behind the scenes videos about this episode, and apparently a bunch of footage was shot during the day and processed to be made to look like nighttime footage. Guess what shots they were? The worst ones. That's right, people. Part of the problem is the show's budget and the producers having to shoot nighttime shots during the day. This scene here is a lot easier to make out Aegon being a screw-up and his grandpa grabbing him up while his jealous younger brother watches. In the original version, it was hard to see anything here. Every shot after that is also hard to see what's happening at the funeral besides Laenor losing his shit. We didn't notice the first time around this moment here when Aemon walks down and looks towards Vhagar with longing. You know this kid is so pumped to steal a dragon. The scene later in the castle between the sea snake and the princess is not too bad, although when we made things brighter we could see the rest of the set better. It's the little things, people. The next scene that needed some real love with the lighting was Day and Rhae's first time. They walk on the beach and talk a bunch, and we could barely make out who was Daemon and who was Rhaenyra. Definitely brightening up this scene helps us understand what happens, which is years of grooming finally coming to a boiling point. The scene that this leads into is even more in need as Aemon's running through the sand and it's almost impossible to make out. Even when the little creep gets to Vhagar, it's hard to see what's happening, but after a brightening touch, seeing the kid jack this dragon was a lot more enjoyable, although still a bummer for Team Black. The big scene with Alicent going all Norma Bates on Rhaenyra was not super dark, so we could make out pretty much everything, although towards the end where Daemon kills a servant in the dead of the night, it's super hard to make out what's going on. We're still super excited about the twist of Laenor surviving. What it could mean for his house and his dragon later on in the series is anyone's guess. Episode 8 had a pretty dark scene early on with Daemon digging an egg out of some kind of dragon shit in a cave. We found out absolutely nothing by making this one brighter. Sorry, folks. Later on, Rhaenyra pleads for her father's help. It is hard to see what's happening, although once we can see, it's just kind of depressing. Viserys' Last Supper needed a little bit of brightening, but the real dark spot in this episode is between Talia and Lady Mysaria. We don't think we've heard the last of Mysaria. Did her house get burned down? The final scene of episode 8 in the deathbed of Viserys was also pretty dim, but again, sometimes these shots aren't lit well to spare us from seeing some sad stuff. R.I.P. King Viz. Episode 9 had some pretty dark moments early on which were symbolic for the king's death and the coming dark times. Brightening them up helped us see what was happening, which was a whole lot of nothing. Alicent and Otto's pre-Green Council convo needed some love, but sadly, there were no new details in the background. This scene with the King's Hand giving orders to Sir Cargill was tough to see anything. Now, we see the background more, which is busy with guardsmen going off to do their duties. How many of them are going to kill a lord that won't bend the knee? The scene with Talia and the other servants along with some children being jailed was also pretty dark. What is the brightness bias here? More depression. Sorry, people. Alicent's second, less friendly meeting with her father is also considerably darker than necessary for the story. It's just nice being able to see what's going on, isn't it? The final dark as fuck scene we want to cover is the escape of Princess Rhaenys. We really could not see what was going on at all there. Now we can clearly see the princess and Eric make their way out into King's Landing and freedom, where Rhaenys will eventually crash one coronation to go be in another. Looking at the trailer for the finale, we know we are going to have some super dark moments, especially during the dragon fight in the middle of a storm, but hopefully we can see every fang and wing slashing around gloriously through the night as each dragon rider sees who can scream Dracarys the loudest. What do you think? Were we better off with the episodes darker? Aside from the funeral episode, maybe, but it's nice to be able to have it both ways. As long as we get an epic dragon battle next episode and many more in season 2, we're House of the Dragon all day. Thanks so much for watching our videos, everybody. As always, we're on the lookout for any new promo videos or insider info to help prove or disprove all the rumors out there about our favorite show where a full family reunion can have less than 10 people, House of the Dragon. Please let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Binge Rampage. Click the notifications bell for our channel so you can see our next video as soon as it comes out, and don't forget to subscribe.
I recognize no authority but the king's. And until there is one, I have no place here.